Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me today for Chat with Byron. Today, we're going to be talking about how coaching works and not necessarily how you're thinking. I'm not going to be talking about the dynamics of why coaching works, but really the idea that coaching in itself is something that if you are considering going through coaching, it is a great thing to think about in many parts of our life, as far as our career, even our life in business. The thing is that not everyone is kind of uh, leans towards coaching, and there are some of us who do. Obviously, as a coach, I I am a proponent of coaching, and I have had many coaches in my life, and still have coaches to this day that help me that help me in my life and my career. So I like this idea of being awake, and this also kind of it comes from this Carl Jung quote. He said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." And this is one of the reasons why I had when the Matrix movies came out and originally came out, there was just a tremendous amount of interest in this idea of being awake versus being asleep. And as you can imagine, when the character Neo was confronted with the choice of which do you want? Do you want to take the red pill or do you want to take the blue pill? It really is this question and this choice. Do you want to live your life kind of plugged into the matrix where you believe you're awake, or do you want to live your life where you're unplugged from the matrix but you're actually awake, you're not asleep? And there's even a scene in the movie that I found particularly interesting. There was this one scene where the guy is actually eating a steak, and he even says, you know what, I know the steak is not real, but I love it. And it tastes delicious, because he was someone that actually had been awakened, was unplugged from the matrix, and he knew that what they had to eat was incredibly disgusting and gross, and there wasn't any pleasure in eating in real life, but there was pleasure for him eating in the matrix. So the idea of being awake is something I think that what coaching, in my opinion, because I believe that every single human being has within them the capacity to grow, to change, and to become whoever they want to become. Just having a conversation earlier today with someone who has really kind of lived in what I would call a very remarkable, inspiring life. And there are some of us who have had such setbacks in our lives that there if if we would just simply live our life in the matrix where we're not awake, then some of us would actually be dead or imprisoned because of the kind of life and the structure or the lack of structure or the environment that we lived in as children. And the point is that what Carl Jung is talking about is that coaching really is this process. And I believe that as a coach, I don't believe that I'm a guru. I don't believe going to a coach because you want that person to be your guru. I remember early on in my coaching, I had someone who was making that kind of insinuation that I was going to be his guru, and I shut that down as fast as I could. I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not your guru. I can't be your guru. You've got to be on. You got to be your own guru. You've got to be the person that kind of sets your own motivation and your own drive." Um, and we stopped working with each other quickly after that, because I did not want to. That is, for some coaches, that's what they want to become. That's not at all what I want to become. And for me, to me, that's not what coaching is about. Really, coaching is about working with the people who want to be awake, and they recognize that this whole thing that we're on is a journey. And even this coaching is a transformative journey, an outward expression of the inward dynamic, where for a brief time you are the subject of your focus, to hear your own voice, see your own power, to decide on what you want. So I'm going to read that again. I want you to think about this, because when you are awake and you're going through this life awake, not anesthetized with drugs or alcohol, or you fill in the blank. But you're no longer connected to the matrix. You recognize that there are there's suffering, there's ugliness, there's difficulties, there's challenges, there's setbacks, there's obstacles to overcome. This is a journey to live. And I believe that coaching in and of itself, it is a transformative journey, but it's really the outward expression. And really it's this idea of how can we as people learn how to express, and the word express has within it this idea of, and it's even connected to breathing, and the idea of even the spirit of expression, of pushing out, of when you kind of, like I've used the analogy of when you express a coffee bean, you're getting the essence of the coffee bean to work for you in the essence of the flavor of a robust cup of coffee. And I remember when I was in Honduras, and these farmers that grow the coffee beans or the cherries, the red cherries, and we were all around. They had all these testing cups of coffee, little itty bitty cups of coffee. They were trying to taste, and they would smell the coffee. Again, the expression of the essence of the coffee as they were smelling it, and they would taste it. They would this weird sensation when they would suck air and coffee at the same time, kind of like as you see someone who's like a wine connoisseur. And I've never liked coffee, but when they asked me to taste it, because I do have for some reason I've got these crazy taste buds. I could taste other things, and I would tell them what I would taste. And I didn't really like the bitterness of the coffee, but I would taste other things, and I would tell them they would just get all excited, because especially whenever I tasted chocolate. The point is that coaching is really that the art of coaching, and the secret of coaching is feedback, but it's also the expression of the feedback, of how that expression, it's the articulation of that inward dynamic of what's going on for a brief time, where you're the subject of your own focus and concentration, your courage and time and effort, all that, where you're it. It's about you and your journey. And this is something that when people realize that this is, in order to take coaching seriously, they absolutely have to own this idea of, how can I learn how to express what's going on inside? And there are people who have a natural ability of, they're verbal processors. They like to talk out loud. I'm a verbal processor, even though I'm more introverted. And you can be an extrovert where you're more extroverted and be an internal processor. And I believe, in my opinion, coaching is that even for internal processors, there has to be this expression, this sharing, this articulation of what's going on inside outwardly. Because ultimately, there's this new vision, new paradigm, where you redefine your limits as you go through coaching. And this is also very much connected and integrated into your story. It has to be, because we all have unique stories. We all have limits, we all have limitations, and we all have a unique story. We cannot at all discard our story. Even if our story has sadness, has trauma, has sorrow, has suffering, it's important for us to own our story, because ultimately the aspects of our story that are the most challenging, those are the things that have shaped us the most. And when we deny our story, when we deny who we are, when we deny, because our story is a part of how we see ourselves. It's our identity. It's our self, how self-aware we are, how much, what our self-identity is. But this new perspective, this new vista, this new paradigm is a way of partnering. There's a partnership that takes place where you provide this ongoing inspiration and illumination that ultimately will illuminate your path. So let me just read this. You redefine your limits, your story, and your setbacks into lessons that shape who you are. because life actually becomes the classroom, or life becomes the laboratory. So a job that sucks, a boss that's mean, actually becomes your teacher. I know what this is like personally. I mean, I worked in an environment where there was a toxic culture, and sure, did I want to leave? 100%, and eventually I did. But in the time that I was, learning that culture, that became my classroom. That became a place where I got to change. Maybe they didn't change, but I changed. And eventually I left. So this new way of thinking, this new paradigm is a partnership, because you don't discard your past, and you don't necessarily run from what's difficult, and you don't necessarily run towards what's difficult either. But there's this partnership, because this idea is that even in the hard things, the hard places, the inspiration can come from some of those difficulties, because that can provide a light to our path. So, more. I believe coaching is for those who want more from life. They're not satisfied with the status quo, or with simply remaining and being where they are. Going back to that character in the Matrix, they don't want to eat fake steak. They don't want to sit there and say, "This is really good. Isn't this good?" And they know they're not eating steak, but they think they're eating steak, and they're delusional. So coaching is for those who want more from life. They don't want to live a life of delusion. Those who feel this. There's a phrase I like. It's called an unholy satisfaction with life, so that they can focus more on what's vitally important. Vitally, it has this idea of life, what's vitally important to them, and to live their lives on purpose, with purpose. So really more. And that's easy to unpack, because life is to be lived. Life is not to be avoided. And I mean, the kind of family I came from a family that there was a lot of abuse. There was emotional abuse, there was physical abuse, there was alcohol abuse. So I got to see people where they tried not to live their life. They tried to cover up their life. And so as an adult, I mean, I've been an adult for a long time. I'm an old guy, but I really think that life is to be lived. And there's this phrase. I remember I said it to a young person years and years ago. This is probably back in the late 90s, early 2000s, back when I was a youth pastor. I said, "You want to suck the marrow out of life." She didn't really understand what I was saying, but it is this idea that coaching is for those who really want more. And there's almost like this voraciousness about wanting more, and wanting to grow, and wanting to get better, and wanting to improve. And it's not for just yourself, it's for other people, but there needs to be this time of focus where you're working on yourself. So this is what I call this concept of a big why. I love this picture. To think that every single fingerprint is unique is pretty amazing. But I believe every single person has a unique purpose, a unique ability, a unique calling. And I don't know what that is for you, but that's exactly what I do in my coaching, is I help people discover their own unique fingerprint. And that is, for me, that's actually my big why, is to help other people find their big why. And here's a part of the process. There's an assessment process that we go through. We want to help. We want to identify what are your top strengths. And there is so much that goes into this, because there used to be, I mean, not anymore, but when I was young, there was a lot of talk. I remember this. There was a lot of talk about working on your weaknesses. And I'm here to tell you, it's not about working on your weaknesses. You need to be aware of them, but you need to work on your strengths. And a strength can be overused. It can be overworked, where it stops being a strength. It becomes more, not necessarily a weakness, but it can be overused. But an underused strength can also be something that, so there's like this modulation. It's like, you think about like a tuner, like the old fashioned tuner. Back in the day, you would tune into a radio station. And when you get right to the station, you would come in right loud and clear. Go to a little bit to the right, it would sound something different. A little bit to the left, sound something different. The point is that this assessment, as we help people kind of discover their big why, it really is about them in full force. I mean, with this voraciousness, this appetite for wanting more, this idea of wanting to be alive, this idea of not wanting to be plugged into the matrix. All of this is kind of it kind of builds upon itself. But when you know your strengths, you want to spend most of your time, most of your thinking, most of your life in those strengths. If you find out you're really good at something, that I believe in some ways I would say it's God telling you that that's something you want to pay attention to. You want to go back and revisit that. Other people would use the words like universe, or something else is telling you to go back and pay attention to that. But I think that when you identify your strengths and you start to, and you can increase the list of strengths for sure, but you can't have every strength. And there are assessments that I use, and I help clients kind of walk through kind of what their strengths are. But really, the job of all of us, not just the coach or the coachee, but all of us, is to figure out ways to deploy your strengths, to use them. Because if you don't use your strengths, and their strengths, what's the point? That's like for me. I always had I was never a comic book person. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't a comic book person because I was an encyclopedia person. I mean, I'm not joking. When I was a kid, I read encyclopedias for fun. So comic books were like, I didn't really get into that. But what really bothered me about Superman is that when he was Clark Kent, and some people thought that was really cool to be a Superman, but kind of clothed in a Clark Kent, with the glasses and having a crush on Lois Lane. And to me, it was like, if you're Superman, be Superman. Why even have a character of Clark Kent? Why? Just be Superman. Just use your strengths. And I remember thinking that when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I just didn't understand the allure of going back and forth. So it's like when I help people find their big why, this assessment process is a huge thing. We want to use our strengths. And sure, like I said earlier, there is a possibility where strengths can be overused, and that becomes a problem, and they can also be underused. But find out what your strengths are and put them to work. So we also want to be able to answer the question. This is a profound question, but it's not a hard question. What do you want? That is one, if not one of the most important questions you can ask. What do you want? Because when you define and get clarity on what it is you want from your life, what it is you want from your partner, what it is you want from your business, what it is you want from your career, you fill in the blank, what it is you want out of life, then now you have something to work with. Now, as they say, now you're cooking with gas, because that's exciting, because that's where there's a lot of power when you're able to tap into what you want. And then once you do that, once you do the assessment and you find out what your strengths are and then now you know what you want. Now you can create a plan. And once you create a plan, you work on your plan. And then you change your plan. You iterate. And then you work your plan. And I'm a huge proponent of having a plan. And I know there are people in my life now that they don't necessarily have a plan. And I don't understand that, honestly, because I think that planning is a part of life. But I have control issues. So for me, having a plan, creating a plan, I kind of think structurally, even the way my thoughts are, it kind of lines up like that. So for me, it's just a natural thing. You may not be like that, but the point is that once you assess, once you define, it's all about creation. And that's where you get a chance to create the plan for you. And that becomes really exciting. And then we got to say this: we have to begin. Then we begin to adjust. We start, then we adjust. We start, go, adjust. Start, go, try, adjust. But the try and fail, you will fail. And if you don't fail, then you're not trying. I know someone that had such a hard time in their relationship with failure. They never really truly gave 100% to anything. And as a result, they tried to live life, and they ended up living a life that was pretty much forgotten. And that's ultimately sad, because I think you want to live a life that failure is okay. Failure, if you're not failing, and in my opinion, you're not trying enough. It's like, I'm not a big skier or snowboarder, never have been. Um, but I know how to do. I mean, I know how to ski a little bit. I'm not much of a skier, but I do know this, that when you learn how to ski, if you're not falling down, and it's very frustrating to learn how to ski because you're cold, you're oftentimes wet, you're hungry. Um, it can be miserable. But if you're not falling down, if you're not failing, then you're not going to learn how to snowboard or ski. A lot of the time, you're spending learning how to get up. But it's iterative, and you have to have that approach. You have to have a relationship with failure and a relationship with risk that you're willing to try. And again, you go back to this. If you know what you want, and what you want is so clear, it's so clear. You put together a compelling plan that you will do it until you fail, and then you'll get up and you'll try it again. That's what I'm talking about. And then there's aspects of this that it's very intuitive, and you kind of have to listen to what I would say God provides for you as far as open doors. Others might say the universe is how the universe opens doors and creates opportunity, but you have to have a sense of intuition. You also have to, in my opinion, you have to use your imagination, and you kind of have to have the ability to zoom out and then zoom in. Zooming out is like trying to go outside yourself like 30,000 feet to kind of see things. And even though that isn't, I mean, that may not sound intuitive, but it actually becomes a part of the intuitive process, zooming out, where you kind of get a sense for things. And then ultimately, again, they also say that there is no snowflake that's alike, just like the fingerprint. It's very personal, because this whole journey that you're on to find what are your strengths, and then you find out what you want, and then you create a plan, and then you implement the plan, then you iterate, and then you use your intuition and your imagination. Is very, very, very unique to you. And that's where working with a coach who understands that, because I believe that the answers are going to be found in you and your story, and in your thoughts and your expression. Going back to the idea of expressing again, it's going to be found in the transformation is going to be found in how you wrestle with that. If you just simply if you don't have time, you don't have time to process, you don't have time to journal or write, because journaling is a huge part of the folks when I walk them through coaching. If they can't journal, they're going to have a really difficult time with coaching. So this is something I find very important, because this happens almost every single time with every single client I work with. They end up hearing their own voice. And obviously I'm hearing myself talk right now, right? But it's different. It's different than just audibly hearing your voice. It's hearing your voice, and it's like, oh, there's something deeper there. There's something special about what I'm hearing. This is when you're reading your journal or reading your reflections, or you're hearing your voice. If you have a chance to watch a recording of maybe one of our coaching sessions, the point is by hearing your own voice, there's power to be tapped into. There's purpose that can be found in hearing your own voice, but also seeing your own life as far as what's vital, what's important to you, what's super important to you, what's critical to you. So the hearing of your own voice and the seeing of your own self, that ends up giving you a tremendous amount of clarity, and I would also say propulsion to move forward, because both those things, hearing and seeing, it kind of it begs the question, what's at stake? And I think what's at stake, I mean, this is just a picture of the hourglass. What's at stake is you. If you're not wanting to live your life plugged into the matrix any longer, if you're not wanting to live your life asleep, if you're wanting to live your life awake, what's at stake is for you to do nothing. Then you're going to remain exactly where you are. Because ultimately, when you do work on yourself and you think about, what are those strongest gifts that you're bringing to the table, provide clarity for really what you want in your life, and then you're able to create a plan for next steps, and you start to work on it and iterate on it, and you hear your own voice, you see yourself. What ends up happening is this coalescing of purpose layer after layer, purpose and meaning, purpose and meaning. And what ends up happening is this idea of impact and of contribution, of how you want to make a dent in the world, how you want to make a difference. Because the coaching, sure, initially you're focusing on yourself, but once you focus in on yourself and you find out what your big why is, then then it almost instantaneously turns around where now this is my purpose. Boom. It's all about impact. And it's not about making money. It's not about being successful. It's about making a contribution to the world. And you figure out a way of, this is my purpose. I need to figure out a way to give this away to as many people as I possibly can. And then that ultimately is what I call impact. And there is no comfort in this. The comfort is that you're working towards this, but to the degree that you fight for comfort is your need to go deeper. Comfort in being comfortable is in many ways that, man, it's hard to say this, but that is the matrix. That is being sucked in and being asleep. It's really about discomfort. It's about growth. It's about learning. It's about continual and constant improvement. To the degree that you fight for comfort is your need to go deeper. That could be comfort with all kinds of things in your life, your relationships, food, your clothing, what you surround yourself with. The point is, if your life is focused on comfort, then that focus is eroding your ability to be awake, because the comfort is going to lull you to sleep. And part of the process of going through coaching is you are confronted with your beliefs. Some of your beliefs are great. They're helpful. They're beneficial. They're supportive. But some of them aren't. Some of our beliefs, they limit us. They hold us back. And we need to identify what those beliefs are so that we can move beyond, move to a deeper level of understanding of who we are and how that connects with our story, with our strengths, all that, so that it becomes clarity for what's next as far as how we can contribute to the world. But some of our beliefs are sacred, but maybe they're not. But the point is it's about confronting those limiting beliefs, the ones that are holding us back. Now, the inner critic, we all have it. The inner critic is actually there to help you. I know it doesn't feel like it is, but your inner critic, this cartoon, it's only a matter of time before they figure out you're a fraud. And he's like, la, 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 I can't hear you. Well, everyone knows what it's like to have that inner critic to be loud and clear. And the point is that we all have an inner critic, but we need to learn how to manage our inner critic and understand our inner critic. And there's a process that I help people go through in order to do that. We all have these nagging doubts, and there's this thing called humble confidence versus what I call fake confidence. And I think it's important that being because I believe once you see yourself, once you hear yourself, once you know yourself, there truly is this humble confidence. That there is humble. The actual part of the root of humble is humus of the earth. You're grounded. You're not kind of flying high in the sky. You're grounded. You're on the earth. But there's also this idea of you know who you are, because no one can outperform how they see themselves, because you know who you are. You have a healthy, robust self-image. Again, it's a humble, confident self-image. It's not something that's been exaggerated. You're not signaling. You're okay in your own skin. Because, and again, this isn't my phrase. This comes from someone named Dr. Maxwell Maltz. No one can outperform how they see themselves. I think that is so true. Is it time for you? Is it time for you to think about coaching? Is it a personal thing to you? Do you think you could benefit from coaching? It requires for you to be all in. Do you have the time and bandwidth for coaching? There is an investment. Do you think now is the time for you to begin coaching? If you change nothing, then nothing will change. This is a part of, these are some of the things I love. And by the way, I need to add another member of the dog family here. You've got Zeke, who passed away, then Mookie, and then we have a new aminal, which we say, his name is Max, Mad Max, or Max the Menace, or whatever you want to call it, the Mighty Max. He's a little guy, and he's a part of our family. But thank you for taking the time to be with me today for Chat with Byron. We went a few minutes over because I was a few minutes late because I had a meeting just before this. But if you want to join our community, go to byronlow.com, join. We'd love to have you. And if you want to take the predictive index, please feel free to do that, and would love to hear your thoughts. You take care.